Acceleration, or the ability to accelerate properly, is probably the most important skill that an athlete can learn for a lot of different sports. If you think about most sports, the ability to go from a stop or moving slowly and speed up quickly is used all over the place. There have been numerous studies on different sports showing that the ability to accelerate over 10 yards and be able to repeat it over and over is one of the biggest determinants for athletic success. So if you're going to concentrate on mechanics of anything, in my opinion, teaching athletes how to accelerate should be the first thing that you do. Unfortunately, a lot of kids don't accelerate properly, and a lot of coaches don't really teach it properly or teach it at all. So this segment of the video is going to show you how I like to teach acceleration mechanics and give you ideas and coaching cues and how you can do this yourself. So when you're teaching athletes how to accelerate, some of the main coaching cues are going to be to get your knees up higher than you're used to. You're going to have a forward body lean. You're going to be driving your feet backwards, and your turnover is actually going to feel a little bit slower than what it would normally feel like. So what I like to kind of show athletes is, if this is my head, these are my feet, and I'm running this way, you're going to want to have the athlete leaning forward on an angle. They shouldn't be bent forward from their waist. They're bending forward basically from their feet, so their whole body is leaning forward. To make that happen, you have to get the knees up nice and high. If your knees aren't up high, then your feet are going to be hitting the ground, and they're hitting the ground prematurely, and you're going to end up standing up more upright, and you're not going to have that lean. You also need to be able to finish each step to basically overcome inertia. So if you go back to some of the physics classes that maybe you took or maybe you didn't take, a longer impulse is going to help you overcome inertia faster or better than shorter impulses. What that means in real life is you don't want to take a little teeny step like dabbing at the ground. You want to push thoroughly and finish that step, because that's going to help you overcome inertia and start to accelerate. So if you ever watch some of the greatest athletes in the world accelerate, you watch a Usain Bolt or any of the really good track athletes, their first few steps actually appear to be kind of slow, but they're covering a massive amount of ground. So the first 4 to 6 steps, the goal of those steps is to overcome inertia, get up to speed, and cover as much ground as possible, not to take a bunch of teeny little choppy steps. So if you've been coaching athletes to come out of the blocks and take a bunch of fast steps, that's not going to be what we're going to focus on today. Now, if you are working with an athlete on soccer or basketball and they're working in small spaces where they're not really accelerating up to top-end speed, that's totally different. This is what we're going to talk about for acceleration mechanics, is if somebody wants to get up to speed and run fast. So you would use this for a 40-yard dash. You would use this with a lot of football skills. You would use it for soccer when somebody needs to accelerate and get up to maximal speed. For baseball and softball, when you're running the bases, you're going to use this. For lacrosse, if you're having to accelerate and get up to top speed. Basketball, you'd be trying to get down the court as fast as you possibly can. Pretty much in every sport where you have to accelerate, at some point this is going to be part of it, and at some point it's not going to be part of it. So you need to be able to coach your athletes on how to do it. So again, some of those cues are going to be to get that good forward lean. You're going to want to get your knees up high out in front of you, and you're going to be pushing backwards as hard as you can. When you're up at top-end speed and using top-end mechanics, your foot is hitting the ground just slightly in front of you, if not underneath you. When you're accelerating, your foot actually hits behind you and then sends you in the opposite direction. So again, going back to physics, whichever way you apply the force, your body's going to go in the opposite direction. So if your foot is hitting down, you're going to go up. If your foot is hitting backwards, you're going to go in the opposite direction. So you're going to try to create what they call force vectors, which is basically what I just said. Whichever way you push, you're going to go in the opposite direction, and you're going to create a force vector that's on an angle. Really, if you could have a horizontal force vector, that would take you in the opposite direction, but in real life, there's no real way to do that because you've got the ground and you'd be falling all over yourself. So we're going to go through a whole series of how I like to teach mechanics. And I'm going to bring an athlete in, and I'm going to have him go through the drills as I show him how to do it. And you can then take this process and apply it to the athletes you're using.